32 years ago, Willie Thorne played Jimmy White in a Benson and Hedges Irish Masters final. They're back today, facing off again for their first match in all that time. Ahead of his game, we caught up with Willie, now living in sunny Spain, to find out just how many hours he's been putting in. Willie, it's such a delight to see you back in Goffs. 32 years.
Is that what it is? 32 years. White. Well, I think I got to the final of the previous year or the year after as well, where I played Steve Davis, and unfortunately lost to both Steve and Jimmy. But at that particular time, they were probably number 1 and 2 in the world, so it wasn't such a retrograde step to lose to one of those two players. Goff's venue has always been something very, very special. And at the time, I was gambling as well. And of course, in those days, you could have a little bet on your matches. Of course, Barry Hearn stopped all that now. So I was backing myself every match. And of course, it got to the Sunday when there was no bookmakers open. And so obviously I didn't have a bet on the Sunday, but Goffs is such a super venue. It's so nice to be back. And of course we all talk about when Ken Doherty used to be selling the programmes, didn't he, in the crowd in those days as a junior. Yeah. So it's one of the venues that everybody likes.
And when did you first play there? Because it was obviously a top 16 tournament with Benson.
To be honest, I can't remember the year, to be honest, but I think I probably played in Goffs maybe 8-10 years on the trot, something like that.
But you've certainly not played there for a long time.
Not at all. I've looked at the horse sales now and again when they're going round. I don't gamble anymore, but it's nice to see that such a great venue has been brought back to the game.
And to sort of take you back to sort of, you'd have been, I guess, early 30s then in 86.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jimmy would have been still pretty
like a baby almost. But he was like a flying machine, wasn't he? He was obviously taking over from Alex Higgins' mantle. Obviously, Alex Higgins played at Goffs many, many times, but playing Jimmy is always going to be tough. I mean, he was one of the game's greatest players, and playing him here at Goffs brings back memories, and I shall look forward to it tomorrow. As you know, I've had a lens replacement in my left eye, and it's working. It's a lot better than it was, but in layman's terms, I can see everything fine until I get down like that. And when my eyes go up, one's lower than the other. So consequently, I'm struggling. I'm hitting everything thick at the moment. When I'm playing a safety shot, and if I'm playing a thin safety shot, sometimes I miss the ball, or sometimes I hit it right, or sometimes I hit it too thick. So I'm guessing a little bit at the minute.
But how long was it until you came back for, I think it was the 2017 seniors, you actually hadn't hit a ball for
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah, not played one frame of snooker in 15 years. Obviously, I do a lot of after dinner speaking, as you know, I do that. And going to like golf clubs sometimes, I say, Willie, will you do a few trick shots for me? That's the only thing I've done. You go into a snooker room and trick shots are from memory. You can remember how to set them up and do things like that. So I did a few trick shots, but never played a frame of snooker until I played in that seniors event a couple of years ago.
See, what is quite interesting is a lot of professionals or top professionals, and one of the best players in the world as you were, to be able to go that long without, it's like asking a footballer to not kick a ball for that long. Did you fall out of love with the game, or was it purely your eyesight?
Eyesight. What it was, I couldn't stand, don't get me wrong, I was never the best player in the world, but I was one of the best players in the world. But I was losing to players that, in my opinion, I shouldn't lose to, because my eyes were telling fibs to me when I was down on the shot. During my career, and everybody will tell you the same thing, very rarely do you miss a black off a spot. Okay, you might miss long blues and things like that, but blacks off a spot was something you use bread and butter. Towards the end of my career, I was missing the blacker spot virtually every frame. So something was lying to me. So I knew I'd got a slight problem. When I packed in, did I miss it? Not at the time, because I was doing other things, obviously doing the commentary, doing quite a few after dinners and that. Now I do miss it. The fact that obviously the work's not as good as it used to be. I've lost the BBC contract a little bit. I'm still doing the Welsh Open, but I'm not doing the World or the UK, which I just hated not doing those two events. I mean, in my opinion, I'm still one of the best commentators, and people say I am, but, for some reason the BBC wanted to go down a younger route and wanted to use players that were on the current circuit. So we have to take it on the chin. I mean, JV, as you know, didn't do the UK this year. So it's a shame, because we had great times doing the commentary. But playing again, just this last month or so, I've been playing again. And round the black spot, I'm okay. I was always, if I'd lost my timing and things like that, I wouldn't want to play. But I know if my eyesight comes back, I'll compete, because like I say, I'm still timing the ball, screwing the ball back and moving the white around. But the long game is shocking at the moment.
See, it's very interesting you say that, because I sit down and I talk to Tony Knowles, who's in a similar situation.
Did you get a word in edgeway with Tony?
I got the odd one. I put in an application. But out of everything, timing is what Tony says.
Exactly.
Tony says, all I need to get right is my timing. Now, for a lot of the modern day players, they probably don't understand how, you know, they can mess with their game technically, but how important the timing feels.
In our era, as you probably remember, there was no table heaters. The balls were a little bit heavy, the cloth was a little bit thicker. So we had to play with a lot of side. Now, obviously, to play with the correct amount of side, you have to hit the ball hard and sometimes that. And if you're not timing it right, you swerve the ball. In this day and age, it's a plain ball game. As you know, many, many hours spent with a legend that is Ronnie O'Sullivan. You know, virtually most of the time he hits plain ball. But because they come off the second cushion, it looks like he's playing with side. But he just, you know, cueing is a massive thing these days. And if you're not timing it right, as Tony, if Tony kind of hits at the ball, he would put unwanted side on. So that's what Tony's talking about, the timing.
Interesting. And, you know, taking you back, so Goff's 86, and obviously around that time, 85, 86, was probably when you had your purple patch.
Yeah, exactly.
You won the Mercantile.
Yeah.
Do you
I think I won in Hong Kong as well, I won in China.
Yeah. And undoubtedly one ball from securing a major.
At the UK Championship. Goodness me, I was 13-8 in front. It was actually, not a lot of people know this, it was Gary Lineker's fault I lost that final. We were at the final, it was 13-8 going into the last session. We've gone back to the hotel, the Tickle Trout, as you know, is just down the road from the Guildhall. And we're talking about the game. He said, look, and we thought, Willie said, make sure you win the first frame. You'll be 14-8 in front. It's impossible then for Davis to beat you. I thought, correct. So at night, I'm 50 odd behind in this first frame in the evening session. I'm clearing up and I potted the blue that anybody listening to this conversation would have potted the blue. But I was suddenly relaxed. I thought, I've won now. I got down carelessly. Rather than roll the blue in and walk round and play the pink in the opposite corner, I decided to stud it in for the same me walking round, which is nonsense. Missed the blue. I've gone back to my seat thinking, I can lose now. So if Gary Lineker had said, win the first frame, and you... Yeah, so obviously I was very, as you know, over the years, I was very weak mentally. Ability-wise, I was certainly been in the top 2 or 3 in the world. Unfortunately, mentally, I wasn't in the top 16. Mentally, I was weak.
Do you think that single ball probably changed the shape of your career? Because you would have come out of that being Willie Thorne, major winner, UK champion, and it would have kicked you on at a period when you
Without a question. I mean, when I lost that match, I then lost 12-9 in front against Eddie Sharp, lost 13-12. 9-7 in front of Werbenet, lost 10-7. I struggled to get over the line. The thing is, going back to how weak mentally I was, this is how bad I was. In my era, there was no sports psychologists, there was no positive mental attitude books and things like that. Steve Davis was the first one of that era in the 80s that studied the game. I remember playing Steve Davis, and he'd have a thing in his hand and look at bits of paper and things like that. And of course, a few years later, I asked him, and all it said was, concentrate on your next shot on this piece of paper. And also, we used to have flowers all around the table. Remember, like the Benson Hedges used to have flowers? Davis always used to look at a point to kind of get the mind kicked in. Of course, I didn't know about anything like this.
Yeah.
And I was very bad. If somebody had a fluke against me, he used to make me sick. I'm thinking, I honestly, if I had 2 flukes in my career, that's how many flukes I had. I was the unluckiest player in the world. No, I used to hate it when people had flukes. Hate it.
It sounds crazy to say this because you say you were in, you know, snooker's top 8, top 4, top 2 in the golden time. Do you think you underachieved?
Oh, without question. I mean, as Jimmy White underachieved, yes, he's not won the World Championship, which as we all know, should have won the World Championship and deserved to win the World Championship. No disrespect to Dennis or Joe Johnson, but, you know, they won the World Championship and Jimmy didn't. Yeah. Was I good enough to win the World Championship? Certainly on ability, but mentally I wasn't good enough to win the World Championship. Over 17 days, you've got to be strong in all departments. I was strong in break building, strong in fancying to win, but if anything went wrong, my safety game wasn't quite good enough, you know, and these days it's not important safety. I'd love to have been playing in this era with my break building ability in the 80s, because I think I'd have got away with it a little bit more in this era. Because, I mean, you know, so the ball splits a lot easier than they used to do because of the table heaters. As you know, Ronnie now just splits them up and clears up, and that's what a lot of players do. These average players, in my humble opinion now, making regular century breaks. Yeah. Because it's easier to make them. Years ago, with slow tables, we had to play with, we were talking about Tony Knowles' timing, we had to play with the side to move the cue ball around because it was slow. One day, we would play in the same venue. One day, the table would run great because it's not raining outside, it's nice and dry. The next day, it'd be raining outside, the table would run half a length slower.
And I think I'm right in saying you never had practice tables?
Never had practice tables, absolutely. We did towards the end, in early 90s. We used to have to play in the local clubs and things and come in cold. So you take a couple of games to get used to the table. Steve Davis is the one really that everybody should thank for the game because, I mean, he was a gentleman, he was a great ambassador for the game, And of course, he could win playing bad. Now, going back to the UK, I was playing so good in that tournament. I think I made 6 centuries in the match and lost the game. If I'd have been playing anybody else, I'd have probably won 16-3. That's how good I played in that particular match. But all of a sudden, this is what I'm talking about, Davis, how strong he was mentally. He saw a weakness in me when I missed that blue. Because he was beat, I'd got him beat. And all of a sudden he thought, oh, Willie's having a struggle getting over the line. And then he changed gear, and I think he made 2 or 3 centuries in the last 4 games. And I missed a couple, and obviously the rest is history.
But I mean, going back, I mean, you've obviously played through an era of unbelievable. I mean, I think you were under 16 champion in 1970. Then when you were coming into the era, you still had Reardon around. Yeah. Then there's Thorburn, then Davis.
It was Ted, we took about years ago, it was Ted Lowe in 1976. I was the youngest pro in the world when I turned pro, the youngest pro in the world at 21. Ted Lowe said, do you want to turn pro? And I said, well, I'd love to turn pro, but am I good enough? And things like that. And I must admit, the first year I lost to Graham Miles in the World Championship. And I thought, you know, I can be good at this game, you know, if I really knuckle down. And it took me once again a couple of years, because going back to how weak I was mentally, you know, I sometimes didn't have the confidence sometimes, you know. I'd be playing, I mean, people watch me in practice, like you've done a million exhibitions with Ronnie O'Sullivan, and you just know what a genius he is around the black spot. The reason people kept backing me and think, because they watched me in practice, if I played for 2 hours, if I didn't make 10 century breaks, I think I was playing bad. You know, I was just unbelievable in practice, and maximums, you know, I made 198 maximums. In that era was unheard of. Yeah. You know, I was the king of the maximums in those, because it's an art. I made 38 against Gary Lineker. He was the world record holder for the most 147s against anybody at one time.
Wow. But and of course, snooker was in the family.
Yeah. Oh, without
Obviously,
doubt. Yeah.
Your brother played a huge part in Mark Selby's career.
Massive in everything again.
So,
and Ben Wollaston and Tom Ford. You know, there were 7 pros on tour came from my club. And Selby, Mark said to me, I've got a young lad called Mark Selby, he's going to be very good. I said, Mark, it's impossible. He was queuing this far away from the cue ball. I said, he might be a top 32 player. Safety-wise, he was a top 32 player. I said, he'll never get in the top 16. That's me talking about Mark Selby. All of a sudden, he went close to the cue ball, improved 28 points overnight, and became one of the greatest players the game's ever seen.
World number 1.
Absolutely.
So we know, talking about the past, just quickly, there's a new life in Spain. Yeah,
exactly,
so we're sitting in the sun, playing a bit of golf.
Yeah. Well, the reason I went to Spain was back. I have back problems, and obviously I felt a little bit disgruntled. What happened to me with, as you know, Champions had a lot of problems with the previous company I was with, and I thought, I just got to get away. I love the life in Spain. I can commute. As you know, I'm doing lots of things with Paul Gascoigne and you know, do with Conor McGregor, and I've done Anthony Joshua and done Tyson Fury. So I'm interviewing those kind of people, which is great fun. I mean, I would interview those for nothing, because I just love sport. Yeah. I mean, I would watch the best tiddlywink player play if he was, you know, if he's the best player. I just love everything about the game, and you know, I've done Harry Redknapp and all those kind of people. So it's been great over the last few years.
Well, you're looking well. It's fantastic. You've got a cue back in your hand, because ultimately you are always going to be Willie Thorne, snooker player. It's going to be tough. Obviously, you're up against who is now the longest serving professional.
Is he really?
But it's a short format. It's a short sprint. The reception you've had from everyone I've seen around it's great to see you playing again. It's great to see you back in golf. I'm sure you're going to get a wonderful reception.
If my long game was anything like, I'd have a chance tomorrow, but I'd be struggling with my long game at this moment in time. But watch this space.
You never know. Thanks, Willie.
Pleasure.